Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purajikacharya Ashtottara that Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purajikacharya Ashtottara that Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavanda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this third day of February 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 4, the Hamsa Prayers, text number 48. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. Mai Anantagune Anante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasit Tata Evadyaha Swayambhu Samabhud Ajaha Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhud Najaha Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha. Who's up? Go ahead. Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha. Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha Mayananda Gune Nante Gunato Gunavigraha Yadasi Tata Evadya Swayambhu Samabhudajaha. Mai, in me, Ananda Gune, possessing unlimited potency. Anante, unlimited. Gunata, from my potency known as Maya. Gunavigraha, the universe, which is a result of the modes of nature. Yada, when. Asit, it came into existence. Tataha, therein. Eva, indeed. Adyaha, the first living being. Swayambhu, Lord Brahmā, Samabhut, was born. Ajaha, although not from a material mother. Translation. This is still Narayan, Lord Narayan speaking. I am the reservoir of unlimited potency, and therefore I am known as unlimited or all-pervading. From my material energy, the cosmic manifestation appeared within me, and in this universal manifestation appeared the chief being, Lord Brahmā, who is your source and is not born of a material mother. Of course, he's speaking to Daksha. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is a description of the history of the universal creation. The first cause is the Lord himself, the Supreme Person. From him, Brahmā is created, and Brahmā takes charge of the affairs of the universe. The universal affairs of the material creation depend upon the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore the cause of the material creation. The entire cosmic manifestation is described herein as Guna Vigraha, the form of the Lord's qualities. From the cosmic universal form, the first creation is Lord Brahmā, who is the cause of all living entities. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya describes the unlimited attributes of the Lord. Pratyekasho gunanam tu niksimatvam udirjate tadanantyam tagunatas te chanantha isankyaya ato anantaguno vishnur gunato nanta evacha. Prabhupada explains, Parasya Shakti Vividhai Vishuyate. The Lord has innumerable potencies, all of which are unlimited. Therefore, the Lord himself and all his qualities, forms, pastimes, and paraphernalia are also unlimited. Because Lord Vishnu has unlimited attributes, he is known as Ananta. Om Jnanatamarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, Lord Narayan is continuing to explain the creation to Daksha. And the main aspect that we take away from this is that there's this first cause of everything. Krishna, who's the cause of all causes. That's drummed into us in many parts of the Shastra. Ahameva asameva agre, from the Bhagavatam, aham sarvasya prabhavo, from the Bhagavad Gita, and so forth. And one of the things that I was thinking about as I was reading this, preparing for this class, is how at every step there's a personality. Although in our material vision, when we're in Maya, there's so much seems to be impersonal. All of this dead matter, and even, of course, when you're really in darkness, even the lower animals, they think they don't really have a soul. You know, we can kill them and can eat them and so forth. But the fact is that the entire creation, even down to the atoms, is pervaded by the personality of Godhead. It's only staying together as matter, and it's only working the way it is in a tremendously, inconceivably complex form because of the Ananta, the endless intelligence of the Lord that's overseeing everything. I mean, just the conception that he's in every atom, sustaining everything, and all of these amazing functions that happen in the material world, there's an intelligence behind it. And you can see how one of the greatest elements of illusion is this idea that things are somehow going on automatically and they evolved by the impersonal forces of time and just things coming together. This is the very first quality, practically, of the demons. You know, we read the 16th chapter. You find that, you know, the divine qualities, and then most of the chapter is the demonic qualities. And what's practically the first verse there? Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishwaram aparasparasambhutam kimanyat kamahoitikam. Very illuminating verse. First of all, the idea is there's no ultimate truth. Asatyam. There's no real foundation to the world. In other words, there's no ultimate rest of being, as Krishna said. Asatyam Jagadahu and Ishwaram. And these are the out and out atheists. These aren't the agnostics. So you really have to contrast them. Agnostics literally means not knowing. And I don't know if you ever thought of this, but working with the books for so long, I saw so many cognates from the Sanskrit to the English. Jnana, the Gnostics in the Middle Ages, are those who knew, who had knowledge. It's obviously derived from the Sanskrit. So agnostic, it actually has, I think, an official philosophical meaning, because I looked it up recently. Not only is it that I don't know if there's a God, but I declare that no one can know. That's kind of a militant thing. But mostly, the common meaning is that I just don't know. I admit I don't know. And that's the literal meaning of the name, agnostic. Now that's a much more favorable platform to be on than to declare, as it says in this verse, Jagat Ahur. They say, Jagat Ahur Anishanam, that the universe has no controller. In other words, they declare it, and they think that for the welfare of society, they really have to work against this medieval, dark, and self-destructive belief in God. This is I read an interesting article some time ago. There's certain major tribunes, or those who are really carrying the flag of atheism. They're known to be, they get into debates with Christian theologians and things like that. I forget their names, but there's 4 or 5 of them. And they went one after another and showed how they all had like moral failings. They were cheating on this, cheating on their wife. They were, using the money that they got from their fame for some nefarious Ponzi scheme or something, And it just says, yeah, this makes perfect sense. They're absolutely sure that there's no God, and therefore there's no ground of morality and ethics, and they can do what they want. It was very telling, that to a man, and they're all men, they had some real, ethical, moral failings there. And some of them are being, charged with crimes and things like that. So that's a central part of the Hare Krishna movement, is that you're meant to become a better person. You're meant to become ethical. And the 4 regulative principles are if you want to get serious and actually get initiated, those are essential. And Prabhupada was very strict about that, and he also contrasted it very much with all these bogus yogis in their system. You can do whatever you want. Just come to the hot yoga guy. I don't even remember. I don't remember his name, and if I did, I wouldn't say it. But he was what to say? A serial abuser of his students, the lady students, And I mean, he was going to be indicted, and he left the country, like that. And one after another is always something, corruption in terms of money, corruption in terms of sex. Usually those 2 are the most prominent. Without the foundation of the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the process that actually gives you the strength to follow those principles. I mean, I'm not in any illusion about, how we've had our own problems in ISKCON with leaders, deviating and falling away, and falling. Because it's a challenge over time, over, decades to maintain that. And my take on it, and Prabhupada said this, there's a very interesting, in the early days, he wrote a letter to Ray Rama. Ray Rama was the very first editor, before Hayagriva, actually. And he was the one who was editing the abridged Gita. And Prabhupada was really, eager to get that first Gita out. He knew how important it was because it was known in the West. It was already a popular book, and he knew if he got his Gita out that people would read it and it would change a lot of minds, and it did. So he wrote to Prabhupada, this Ray Rama, and he said, Prabhupada, you wanted me to work on this. I'm spending as much time as possible on the editing, but I just don't have time to attend all the programs and everything, like that, so what should I do? So he said, okay, you have to chant your rounds, follow the principles, and you have to go out on Harinam. Usually the standard was at least an hour a day. That's imperative for maintaining your consciousness. And I thought that, of course, the chanting of the rounds is given, But that Prabhupada emphasized Harinam. This is the Yuga Dharma. This is where you get your strength. And of course, I don't get out very much anymore. We used to have once a week. But the kirtans in the temple are obviously essential. It's not that, okay, the kirtan is going on, now I can do other stuff. I happen to have, behind my rounds I had to do, but I was chanting Hare Krishna in the back, and I was hearing your kirtan, because it's coming both from the kitchen and it's coming there with a nice delay. There's an interesting syncopation going on. So anyway, but that's, I've seen over the years, that's a real danger. You get into a management position, and there's things to do. Back in the late 70s, after Prabhupada disappeared, suddenly, you had, of course, the gurus. That was a big responsibility. But also a zone that includes, I'm not going to name any names, that includes New York, LA, and Hawaii. Now you can imagine, in the middle of the japa period, you get some emergency call from New York. It's 9:30 there, and the day has begun, and there's all these problems. Okay, so before you know it, your sadhana is ragged, and then what happens is old tendencies come up and everything like that. So this is we should always remember that is and hearing Bhagavatam. I mean, basically we're learning that Krishna. What is the most prominent word in this? The Ananta, right? It appears twice in the first line. That he possesses unlimited potency and he himself is unlimited. So this line from the introduction often comes into my mind, the introduction of the Gita. Prabhupada is talking about the Paramatma. And that the Paramatma, as Krishna says, he knows everything. Upadrashta anamanta. He's overseeing, he's permitting, and he knows Prabhupada says in the purport, he knows everything we're thinking, and planning and all these things. And the first forgetfulness, I mean, why are we covered by Maya? Because you can't try to exploit matter and be a separate enjoyer if you remember that Krishna is watching and that he's really the supreme enjoyer. No, you have to be able to forget that in order to really get into it. Otherwise, you get crazy. So he said we should always remember that the super soul is overseeing, he's permitting, he's watching, he knows. And if you do remember that, then you'll naturally, especially if you understand the philosophy, want to do what the super soul, Krishna, wants you to do. And Prabhupada mentioned this actually in purpose, that conscience, I want to do this, but I know it's wrong. That struggle you go through, And when you actually do it, gradually that voice becomes weaker and weaker. Gradually you're able to perform these sinful activities with no hesitation, which is a very unhealthy state of mind. It means you're headed downward. So everything we have, even these seemingly rather technical explanations of the creation, and of course he's encouraging Daksha to take his role seriously, that he's a very important role of populating the universe, because without that, how are these living entities going to have a chance to work out their karma, but more importantly, come in contact with devotional service and maybe become devotees. So there has to be obviously a universe, but there also has to be a method for populating the universe, and that's what Daksha's role is. And he's already been through a lot. I think this is after his insult of Lord Shiva, right? And so he's ready to undertake this role. And there's a few glitches, that's going to happen. Because it always happens, even when Lord Brahma starts the creation, you hear, I think we read about in the second canto, in the third canto. And it's not a smooth process. He creates the demons from his mind, and they go after him. And then he creates the Kumaras, they don't want to do it. And he gets angry and Rudra appears. And it's just one thing after another. Because he's dealing with material desire, with material energy. And there's always a disorganization factor when you deal with the material energy. But of course, he gets the job done. And our particular Brahmā, is going back to God, and not all of them do, because, as Prabhupada famously said in the 9th canto, near the end of the 9th canto, the first birth one takes when he leaves the spiritual world is Brahmā. Well, a lot of them keep going down. They get bewildered, and they come down and become a worm and stool eventually, which is inconceivable. But our Brahmā, the head of Sampradaya, he's the author of the Brahma Samhita. He's going to take all those back with him who are there and who are advanced in Krishna consciousness on Brahma Loka. I had a letter that was sent to me a few years ago now by Mukunda Maharaj. And there was, in the purport, A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartanojana. It's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 8th chapter, I believe. And Krishna is describing, even, it's interesting, Sanskrit is so fascinating. The prefix A, when it's detached like that, means even up to. Even up to. Even up to Brahma Loka, it's place of return. So that means that those who go to Brahma Loka, who live on Brahma Loka, they also don't automatically go back to Godhead. And but in the purport, the way it had been edited, it seemed like it said that everyone who is a servant of Brahma on Brahma Loka goes back to Godhead. That's not what actually was written. It was everyone who's advanced in Krishna consciousness on Brahma Loka goes back with Brahma, but not everybody is, and so people come back, and sometimes even Brahma doesn't go back. So we're in an endeavor here that is it's not a given that we go back to Godhead. Obviously, it's a struggle. And the struggle is with our past conditioning and present temptations and the tendency to become slack in our sadhana. And these are, prolific warnings we have in the Shastra. One of the most valuable books that came out in the mid-70s was this Nectar of Instruction book. There's so many practical instructions. It's 11 verses, very concise, but they're all essential. What are how to choose a guru? The first one is actually about choosing a guru. Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam, jiva vegam anuropasta vegam, etam vegam yovashe disarvam pimans pritaving sashishyat. Now, why did he choose those characteristics? Because there's so many others. He didn't say anything about the knowledge and the advancement in love of Godhead. It's all like, because you can see these. Because this is for the devotee, you're choosing your guru, right? I mean, that's the first thing you have to do. Ada gurvashaya, take shelter of a guru. And actually it's gurus, because it's very clear in the first chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Shiksha Gurus and the Diksha Gurus and the Bhartma Darshika Gurus, all of them are important, and all of them should be honored. But they have to meet this minimal qualification, being able to control the urges of speech, of the mind, and the vacho vegam, manasa, krodha vegam, and anger, and the most gross urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. So these, if you're going to a center, you're meeting, something you read, but you can see that this is not really controlled. There's discrepancies here, Then you have to be very wary, because that control comes with advancement of devotional service. Vacha, you only want to speak about Krishna. Anger can be used as very carefully, as in Arjuna used it, Prabhupada used it in disciplining. But you could see it wasn't the kind of anger that really infects your body. Prabhupada would become angry, and then the next moment he would be again peaceful. And in fact, the same devotee, he would praise him and like that. And so you can see that he's using that as a very fine tool to discipline, which is necessary. But the things that stop, the things that impede your devotion service, in fact destroy it. We should know this verse. Atyahara priyasascha pajalpo niyamagraha janasangasta lalyancha shadbir bhaktir pranashiti. Bhakta Ross says, this is one of the verses he memorized, right? That's why he's sitting here. So, too much eating, overeating. For years, as a bhakta, as a bhakta then in the new initiate, it was a battle, because really, as Prabhupada knew, they need some outlet, So the Sunday feast, the Sunday feast, and the cooking, and it was just after a week of austerity and everything, the tendency was to eat too much. I don't know how many times I explained this. I'm lying in my bunk, I can hardly breathe, on my back. and always the mood was, he's laughing, never again, never again. That's it. And then a week of service, and then Sunday comes around. The thing is, we lived in a house, and we had excellent cooks, and all of the aromas would come throughout the whole place, the whole day, And it was, oh God. Anyway, but that has to be gradually, yes, eat up to here, you first come, waddle like a duck. But that has to be controlled after a while, otherwise you can't make any advancement. So and also that another meaning is over collecting, which is a danger, that because the attachments come and they get splayed out. You're supposed to be attached to Krishna. Whatever you have, it should be given to Krishna. So minimal living, especially brahmachari life, and then priyasas, over endeavor from mundane things, from material things. That over endeavor will be, that's where your heart is. The thing that you're really trying hard to get, it's maybe a material thing. So we have to watch out for that. And of course, prajalpa is such a danger. I was reading this purport yesterday when I was trying to prepare for the evening, and Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary on that Jagai pastime is just incredible. And he's talking about that, the sounds that you hear and the sounds that you utter are like all important for the consciousness that you have. And that's why I like to quote this verse. This is a poetic interlude from the Pajavali. Now, Pajavali is not mostly written by Rupa Goswami. What I get from the Pajavali, this is his own nectar file. And I'm not sure that he put it into all the categories. Jiva Goswami may have done it, but it's vast. It's almost 400 verses. So this one is praising the absorbing oneself in Krishna Katha. Aho bir nakale viduyate sudha sudhara modoram pade pade dine dine chandana chandra shitalam yasho yashoratana yasagiyate. Very poetic. It says, because at every step, and I always think of Prabhupada with this verse, because at every step they drink a flood of wondrous nectar sweet, whose cooling power sandal paste enhanced with camphor can't defeat. They feel as if the raging blaze of Kali's days had ne'er begun. How blessed are they who fill their days with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. And really that last line is what we're all about. We should always be glorifying Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna. I remember there's this one devotee in L.A., he always used to carry one of those little bags that I have, And in that bag was the Nectar Devotion book. And when in those days, you had no iPads, no nothing, just books. And he would catch a devotee, after prasadam or walking on the street, and say, hey, Prabhu, you want to hear something amazing? He'd reach in the bag, open the book, and he reads some wonderful passage from Nectar Devotion. It was very wonderful, And we should really be in that mood, because that's the great advantage of having the devotee association, is that you're with people who you can enliven, who can enliven you, by sharing realizations, by reading together, or remembering verses and so forth. So that's what this verse is all about, is that the absorption in Krishna Katha, hearing, chanting, remembering, is the great salvation. That's the main form in which we encounter Krishna. You have the deities, of course the holy name, which is the essence of hearing and chanting. But all of these wonderful descriptions, Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotions, Chaitanya Charitamrita, I remember working on producing the CC. Here I am, what was it? Okay, I was a little over a 2-year devotee, you know. I had great fortune of working in the press, you know. And somehow I'm in the middle of this marathon. And what needed to be done were 4 chapters of the Anjalila. So and this is all like, you know, Lord Chaitanya's in ecstasy and these things, you know. And wonderful verses about, that would be quoted from the Govinda Lilamrita, which was written after Lord Chaitanya's, you know, period. But they perfectly encapsulated the mood that was going on there, where he's situated in Jagannath Puri, and he hears some wonderful verse from the Shastra, and then he expands on it, and then he, you know, has a long kirtan, goes in ecstasy and everything. So there's a series of verses where Radharani is speaking to a friend, and she goes through each of her senses, and how Krishna has completely captivated the senses. So what the first one, I'll just give you the first one about the vision. Navambuddha sadjitir navatadin manogyambara suchitta murarispara charanamanda chandranana mayoda dalabhushita subhakatara harapaba same madana mohana sakatanoti netraspiham. So Madana Mohana is the manifestation of Krishna, who is more attractive than Cupid, who steals our mind away from the attractions of the opposite sex, whether you're a man or a woman. So she's saying Navambuddha, a new cloud, Lasad Yutir. He has the effulgence of this new cloud. Actually, there's one verse that says that the new cloud with the sun behind it, you know, a fresh cloud. So he's effulgent, but he's got that grayish, bluish, you know, tray. Lasad Navatadin Manogyambara, and his garments are glittering just like lightning. Suchitta Murarispura Chadaramanda Chandranana. So his face is like a full moon, you know, he plays that flute. So she's meditating on his beautiful face as he plays the flute. Suchitta Murarispura Chadaramanda Chandranana. Mayura Dalabhushita, he's decorated with a beautiful peacock plume. Subhakatara Hara Pabha. And he has this wonderful pearl necklace hanging around, you know, very gorgeous. Same Madana Mohana Sakatanoti Netraspiham. In this way, Madana Mohan is increasing the desires of my eyes to see him. You see? My eyes to see him. And she goes through each sense, you know, the ears and the touch and everything, and the taste. And then after each verse, there is an expansion of it by Lord Chaitanya. You know, he's speaking to his friends and Ramananda Roy, and, you know, intimate associates, Rup Damodar. So, you know, I was thinking as I was working on these verses, how have I gotten this chance? You know, I'm wet beyond the ears, you know, and I'm, you know, trying to, you know, chant 16 rounds, not 64 rounds. You know. But I just said, this is the most wonderful. And I would do this with the devotees. I said, you want to hear this verse? I just discovered it in the CC, you know. So that was a wonderful time, and so many devotees were absorbed. The artists, you know, the forms, and they had to give up the sense of, I painted this painting, because someone would paint a little bit, then everyone would come by and touch it up, you know. And so it was a big shot in the arm for the whole movement, actually. That famous line where Prabhupada said, impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary. When the devotees actually succeeded in producing those, it actually turned out to be 15 books. It was known as 17 books. But 15 is still plenty. In 2 months, which is impossible in ordinary. And they did it. And then many other things that were thought to be impossible were done. Just as, you know, the explosion of book distribution that took place, and, you know, selling 500 books, what to speak of 3,000 books? I mean, that's totally... But so because that's what Prabhupada, he had to embrace that, because when he started coming to America, the whole thing seemed impossible. So Mati Maharaj said, "You're just going to die over there. I'm not going to give you a free ride, you know." But Prabhupada persisted, said, "Okay, you know." To her great credit, she did it. And so that can go for our own sadhana and our own chance as well, because part of losing faith is kind of subtle. You're losing faith that you can do it, that Krishna can empower me to do everything that's necessary to become advanced and go back to Godhead. But that's saying that Krishna can't do it. But these pastimes like Jagai Madhai, you know, these are well, if they could do it, you know, this is the whole thing with Nityananda. Well, if Lord Chaitanya can deliver them, then he'll be so, glorified everywhere, and prove that he's the avatar for the age, because everybody's more or less like that. And Prabhupada proved it by coming to America. These hippies having sex in the street and psychedelics and everything. And those who surrendered, who were able to clean up their act, so to speak, and actually take seriously, their character was transformed. And Prabhupada always used that in preaching. He met not the mayor, the police chief or something in Chicago, because he was reading Time magazine, and the big article was crime, why, and what to do. And Prabhupada had the perfect answer. Why? Because everybody's in the modes of nature, because they're not being educated properly. They don't have the proper knowledge. The educational system is failing. And so he had the perfect conclusion, because they didn't give him what he would give us a building, and we'll have kirtan there, and you'll see the crime rate will go down. And it's a fact. The devotees who joined, I don't know how many were into criminal activities, but immoral activities lead to criminal activity. And it was, and he would work on that. He would often preach on that point about drugs, how the government is so worried. And in the height of the hippie days, they were worried. Thousands and thousands and thousands of young people who are sons and daughters of respectable, even wealthy people, inundating San Francisco and living on the street. What's going on with America? So Prabhupada understood, and he proved the power of this process, and the essential part of it is this knowledge, and that we read every day, we take it seriously. It's great, we can discuss, and then these classes are important, of course, essential. So that we're living our life, and it's transformative. Taking the knowledge in and then living according to it. That's how we become purified. And so these verses that Narayan is speaking and describing himself. He's completely unlimited. We're limited, so our real ambition should be to link up with the unlimited, so that we can also regain our original qualities, not of being unlimited, but of being transcendental to these modes of nature and being filled with natural happiness. Isn't it a wonderful thing to discover that reservoir of pleasure, that little pamphlet? That's within our hearts. That reservoir of pleasure, we don't know it's there, and so we're looking outside, and Yehi sangsparjaja boga dukkha yona evate, one of my favorite lines, that this contact with the senses causes misery. Even in this one life, and then takes you into future lives of more misery. But to get in contact with that reservoir of pleasure through the chanting and the practice of devotional service, that stays with you in every age. In other words, every age that you are. I'm not getting any pleasure from sense gratification, but these shlokas are. Yesterday I was listening to the Nityananashtaka. I had recorded it many years earlier, and it was such a pleasurable experience. I just put it on repeat, and I had to go in 10 times. What is it? Sada Chandra Brandim Spudadamalakandin Gajakatim Hadi Premo Nattam Tudapadna. And the imagery, and the little poem that I made of it. So you couldn't, I never, in my house when I grew up, we listened to folk music and classical music and jazz. That was basically it. No rock music, none of this stuff. But I thank my father for training me. He was a drummer, he trained me on bongo drums, a natural rhythm. But when I discovered the Sanskrit, all of the incredible chanda in the Sanskrit, I was like enthralled. It's one of the reasons I never learned to play the drum properly. But those when the drummers aren't here, then the others have to tolerate, because there's no one else to keep the beat. We could always just clap, I suppose. All right, any questions on these verses or points we covered? All right. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna.
All right, just we have a local question, but you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome.
I was wondering if you could tell the pastime of how death appeared
About
from
who?
Lord Brahma. The death, the incarnation of an entity of death appeared.
About how death appeared.
Yeah.
I think I blocked it out because I don't want to face death.
Yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell.
Personality of death. Yeah, yes, exactly.
How death appeared.
Yes.
How do you look like?
There was an interesting pastime I've heard, but I don't.
It's in the Bhagavatam. You remember where? Must have been pretty scary. Death appearing. Can death appear if no one dies? Was it the first time someone died? Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. You know, I have to take that medicine. So I'll be able to remember. He has a supplement. No, that I'm already taking. This is something special. So just get ready for a slew of verses that I've long forgotten. Anyway, the answer is no. I can't do that. So maybe we should we should let Vijay finish it, and we can, because I got a million things to do. Vijay.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu. Thank you very much. You're very
on.
kind. Dandavad pranams.
Dandavad.
Prabhu, can I ask a question related to yesterday's festival?
Okay.
Why did Lord Nityananda condemn the caste system?
Why did he condemn the caste system?
Yes.
Was that mentioned in something we read? I mean,
No,
you mentioned it in
I
the
read
morning.
it in Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. Oh.
His biography in
Wikipedia
says that.
Well, the thing is, our whole sampradaya, condemns the caste system, not varnashram dharma, but the caste is a pejorative term. It means the caste system. It means by birth. It means that the Brahmins who are born, those who are born in Brahmin families claim to be Brahmins without actually having guna and karma, the actual qualities and activities of Brahmins, and that's endemic in India, And the real varnashram dharma, and by contrast, because this is exploitation and lording it over and discrimination, and setting a whole group of people as outside the Vedic culture, and therefore they can be exploited or ignored or whatever. That's very damaging. But the real varnashram system, when you have genuine Brahmins and Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, is mentioned right near the beginning of Bhagavatam. Atak pumbir dvida shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha swanastita siddharmasa sangside haritoshanam. So, Dvida Shrestha, those are the Brahmins who've gathered at Naimisharanya, and Sutta Goswami is addressing them. The divisions of Varna and Ashram find their perfection when all the Varnas and Ashrams are centered on pleasing Krishna. And I've seen it. We had a budding system that's going on in Gita Nagari early on. And you had learned Brahmins there. Satsrupa Maharaj was there writing his book all the time. He's writing the Lilamrita. This is in 78, 79, 80. And we used to go and visit there. And you had the farmers, and you had the Brahmins who were doing the puja, basically. They were taking care of the deities, and and of course Satsrupa Maharaj was giving classes, and others were giving. And so, but everything was centered on Radha Damodar. They're the deities there. Famous deities that then went traveling on the buses. And everyone can be satisfied. And I give the perfect example of a kirtan. Kirtan is our life and soul, right? So when you have there's a festival, like we had last night, beautiful festival, Radhastami, Janmashtami, etc. Or out on Harinam on the street. There was mostly in the temple. and big kirtans going on. There's no question, oh, he's a Shudra, you know, he's just a Vaishya. But those Brahmins, they're really nothing like that. Everyone's absorbed in the holy name, all of these distinctions, because these distinctions are based on superficial qualities. It's not, you know, the spiritual qualities. And so Lord Chaitanya showed, you know, the revolutionary. Haridas Thakur became the Namacharya. Ramananda Roy became his most Ramananda Roy was also on the level of the Shudras, Kayastha, right? So, but Lord Chaitanya, he saw him and gave him a big hug, embraced him, you know. This is Ramananda Roy, most advanced in the conjugal understanding and all of the intricacies of that. So that's a basic tenet of our whole approach, that the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, is that anyone, and Jagai Madai is a perfect example. No matter how sinful you are, how rejected, you know, whatever your situation, you can be purified by the process of devotional service and come up to the highest standard. Because all of that is external to the soul. The soul is by nature pure. But when we come in contact with the modes of nature and our mind becomes absorbed in the externals and in enjoyment, then we can become degraded so much we lose the human form of life and go down. So that's you know, the thing with the what was the original question?
Why Lord Nityananda condemned the caste system?
Yeah, because because the caste system, the rigid caste system based on birth, is antithetical to the process of devotional service, where every living entity is especially in human form, are eligible for getting the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And that's really the mood. Just chant. I don't care where you came from. I don't know what you did yesterday or 1 hour earlier. Just come and you chant with us. Chant, 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 chant. And, you know, after take prasadam. And you'll feel the purification, and you know, become interested in reading the books. That's how it works. The process is so purifying, so powerful. There's an ocean of faults we're living in here. Just like this, we're on a knife edge now. It looks like it could be a war at any moment, international war. We all have to be chanting Hare Krishna, you know, all the time. But hopefully by the last time this happened in Cuban Missile Crisis, much later on I said, okay, it didn't happen because Prabhupada was coming just a couple of years later. And he came, you know. Maybe it'll miraculously happen this time. But if it doesn't happen and there's a war, I mean, devotees, I mean, I read, oh my God, the Muslim invasions, you know, the Persians, and that happened in India in the, you know, 800, 900, 1,000, is just horrific. Just enslaving and killing and just looting the whole country. And then the British came, basic thing, not as gross, but still, you know. So the Vaishnavas have been there, you know, they're part of the Hindu culture, they were undergoing it. But how you take it, Prabhupada, we mentioned how the bombs are falling. The Japanese, I think, were bombing Calcutta because they were, you know, India was aligned with England and they're part of the Allies Axis. So Prabhupada said, how did he take it? So famously on the tape, he said, oh, I saw it, you know, as some fireworks or something. No, boom. Prabhupada was great at sound effects, really great. The bombs are falling, you know. But he wasn't disturbed to the universal form, you know. But when I worked on the biography, it was actually an autobiography of Bhakti Charuswami, the Ocean of Mercy, you know. I got to do a little editing, mostly proofreading, you know, but it's a BBT book. And he said that Prabhupada went out on Harinam during the bombing with other Gaudiya Math members. They were doing Harinam. So what do we have to lose? If the bomb falls on us, we go back to Godhead. Otherwise, we just get absorbed in Harinam and encourage everyone. So that's how we can face all these things. Is that if you're fully Krishna conscious, then you can tolerate and you can accept this as Krishna's will. And body, goodbye body, you know. I mean, I've used you as best I can in your service. Now, please take me back, because whether it's, you know, and the climate change. I mean, in New Hampshire, And they have wind chill factors minus 50, minus 48. Fahrenheit. We have plus 48 and we have to turn on the heat. Isn't it? This is not normal. This is disastrous climate change already, what to speak of as time goes on. So let's not plan to stay around here. Let's continue, and we're not interested in caste, this, that, these things. We just try to be sincere devotees and engage our senses, mind, and intelligence in the service of the Lord, and pray to Krishna to give us the strength to sustain our devotion and to be sincere and serve other devotees and go day by day. And that's the best we can do. That's the best I can do, Vijay. No caste system.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. Again, wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, glory to Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Okay, that's all we have time for. Thank you for listening. And tomorrow, 6:49. Haribol. Oh.